Guys, it's September 23rd. I've been home for a week. Got home last Monday. This is Monday, so that makes a week, right? Everything's been going good. I'm sorry I didn't show you a trip up of the river. It kind of looks like this. And of course the ATV ride, which looks like this. Okay, here we go. This is step one or something like that. Maybe step one. Here we go. Whoops, my battery's almost dead. Here we have the stock pot filled with water, filled with jars. There's 8 jars in there. Let me keep my finger in there. There are 8 jars in there. We will let this come to a boil and sterilize them. Works better if you cover it up after all. Now, don't worry about the leaves on the ground. It has been raining for several weeks, so everything is very, very saturated. There's no danger of fire. So we're just going to let this cook, come up to a boil, sterilize everything. While that's happening, we're going to be in the cabin cutting up our first load of meat, and we will put the water and the jars in the container. I'll do the filling of the jars and stuff like that out here. But if you don't know how to cut up a chicken leg or something like that, you might want to go watch a cat video instead of this. Just cut it up however you like it. It's your can and your meat, right? Okay, here we go. We've got our canner. I put a little bit of water in it. I will fine tune that later once I get all the jars in there. And I do have a reason for that, so stay tuned. Our jars are all sterilized. And wow, that lid's hot. One other step I do is I do heat up the lids just to make the seal softer and grab better when I initially put the food in the jars. That sun is really coming out, ain't it? Okay, let's get this show on the road. We'll get these all. I'm trying to do this hand holding as always. I don't know why. I suck at it, but have to turn these over. This is really hard to do while I'm looking at the jar and not looking through the viewfinder, so I apologize for any framing. But what we want to do is we want to get these all out of this hot water and stood up straight so we can start putting our meat inside. So there. Now we're going to put the cover back on the stock pot. We'll be needing that later for phase 2 of this operation. But that's what we want to do. We want to sterilize, clean our jars quick, and also want to heat up our lids. And now the process we're going to go through is to start putting meat inside our jars. Hope this is coming out because I'm hand holding this. Like I said, some of these jars do not have as much meat in them as I would like, and some are filled to the brim just because of the varying sizes of the thighs. Now, what you want to do is you want to fill your jars to within an inch of the top, or about an inch, with water. And sometimes you gotta let them, you gotta jiggle them around and let the water work its way down to the bottom of the jar there. For an example, once you have your meat and your water in, you wipe the rim, make sure it's clean. You don't want any meat or debris or anything like that on there. You take your lid, put your lid on the top, and then you put your ring on. I forgot to prep my ring, so hold on one second. And just screw your lid on, just finger tight, not tight at all. You want this to be able to flex, and air has to move in and out. So, like I said, just till it stops. It's as far as you got to go. Okay, here we have all of our jars. It's mostly chicken, but there's a couple of jars of hamburger in there. And hamburger does can very, very well. I did adjust the water level. I actually had too much in there, so I once all the jars are in there, I like it to be about 2/3 full. That's a little bit more than what the manual recommends. However, I have found that it's very easy to boil these dry, and you don't want to do that. you should never leave your canner alone. Find something to do, read a book, sit next to your canning operation. Don't go too far. You always want to be able to adjust your flame. Like I said, these cash cookers are great. I love them. However, they do not have a really sophisticated way of adjusting the flame, so you're always going to have to be tweaking this just a little bit. My canners, all of them, have weights on them instead of gauges, and there's a reason for that. Gauges are great. I got nothing against gauges, but the weights don't go bad. Gauges can go bad, and if you don't have them checked regularly, you might be dealing with some very, very dangerous pressures. So I prefer the weights myself. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. We have our jars in our canner. The canner's filled to what I consider an appropriate level. We'll put the lid on it and fire this bad boy up, and then we have to wait for it to start to boil and steam. Now there we go. Our flame is burning. Just turned the flame on. You'll see that I'm using the 10-pound weight. This unit, this weight system, it disassembles. The part I took off is right here. This would make it a 15-pound weight. This makes it a 10-pound weight. If you take this one off, then it would be a 5-pound weight. Very simple. What we want to do is we want to wait for this to build up heat and pressure. This little part right here will start jiggling back and forth just ever so gently. That's when we know we got the right temperature. Now you don't want it going crazy. You just want it to very, very gently jiggle, and it'll spin in circles just a little bit. Now it's in the mid-30s right now, so you're going to see a lot more steam coming out of this than what you would if you were inside, and that's just because of the difference in air temperature from inside to outside. So that you kind of have to take into account. You might be thinking, oh man, this thing is going to blow, but basically what it is just that steam hitting the cold air, and it's just much more noticeable than it would be if you were inside in a house where it's 75 degrees or whatever. So we have chicken and ground beef in the canner. The rule of thumb for most meats is if you're using the weight system, it's 10 pounds for an hour and a half. So once this comes up to temperature, you start timing it, and you want it to run at that temperature for an hour and a half. It's kind of a long process, so just grab yourself a book or your Kindle or whatever you do, and just enjoy the afternoon or the morning or whatever, and get your canning done. Now I have a lot of meat. This is going to take at least 2 days to get this meat canned. Okay, I have made minor adjustments to the gas valve, and you can see that the weight is jiggling and turning kind of slowly. We're just going to keep an eye on it and make sure that it does that. It's not real dramatic. You just want it to keep jiggling. Okay, let the canner run for just over an hour and a half. You can see it's about, I shut off a few minutes ago, so about 137 minutes, something like that. Now, we can't open this up yet. It's very hot and there's a lot of pressure in there. So you don't want to try to take this lid off until it becomes cool to the touch. That's really important. Like I said, there's a lot of pressure inside there. So we're just going to let her sit about, I don't know, I guess it usually takes about a half hour, and we'll be able to take the jars out and start the process all over again. Okay, it's been about an hour, a little over an hour. And, I'll take this off slowly but surely. Okay. There we go. Set that off to the side. All of our jars are sealed. They're still pretty warm. We will lift them out carefully and set them on the towel that was on that table. That's what the towel is for, is to insulate it, the jar, from any surface that might cause a problem in cracking or anything. You want to get these all out of the canner. snug down the jars a bit, the lids. Now the jars are still a bit warm, and I'm a wuss, so I'm just going to tighten these down a bit. It's not unusual to hear these lids popping as they seal and unseal and reseal. Give them about 24 hours to make up their minds what they're going to do. If you have any that do pop up and don't want to reseal after that period of time, you can just recan them. It's not a tragedy. You just remove the lid and the ring, of course. The ring, then the lid, and then wipe the rim of the jar so it's clean. And put a new lid on if you have a new lid. If not, clean the old one gently and redo the process. And there you have it. We're going to start another batch. We're going to set these off on another towel because we need our table back, but we're going to start another batch now. So anyway, that's it. I ran the canner 3 times. I ended up with 23 pints in 1 quart. Pretty much all the meat I brought up. I did save some stuff out to get me through the next week or so, and I knew that it wasn't going to spoil. I didn't can the bacon. That's a pretty hard process. Kind of sucks not having any fresh meat other than grouse. I've been doing pretty good grouse hunting. I haven't seen any rabbits or hares up here. The numbers have been on the decline, but I can get a grouse every time I feel the need for some fresh meat. And time's going pretty quick. Pretty soon winter will actually be here. It snowed a couple times, but it warmed up enough for it to melt and or get rained off, so that's just the way it goes. It's kind of a song and dance early in the season. So anyway, I'm going to let you go. I hope you found the video entertaining and informative for sure. If you want to start canning, I think there's enough information in this video to where you can do it. If you have any questions, please comment. I'll try to get back to you. It's just really rough trying to do internet stuff when you don't have internet. So as a historian, I'm sticking to it. But anyway, thanks for liking, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you on the next one. Yeah, look, grouse poop right next to where I was sitting.